Each time the wind sweeps through the baobab forest, the elders say it carries a memory of a love vow so beautiful it hurt, and of a heart that shattered beneath the weight of a call from the past. And so the story begins in the village of Azari, where life flows slowly, like the rhythm of a drum, and the spirits of the ancestors never truly leave. Tucked deep among the red earth hills of central Nigeria, Azari wakes with the sun rising behind the oldest baobab tree and sleeps beneath rooftops that curve with palm leaves. A small village, yes, but sacred. Every stone on its dusty paths is believed to have heard the whispers of those who came before. In that village lived a girl named Adana, a name that means beloved daughter. She wasn't of noble blood, but wherever she went, her soft voice and warm smile lingered like the scent of rain on dry soil. People often said her hands could turn thread into gold, for the bracelets she wove were not just beautiful, they felt alive. Then there was Cheek, the only son of the village chief. Tall, silent, with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 generations. He walked like a man tethered to something ancient. The villagers called him the shadow of tomorrow, the one destined to lead and uphold tradition. No one expected it, that two souls, one free like the wind, the other bound like roots, would cross paths under the full moon festival. It was the night of the red moon when drums roared endlessly from the community square. The entire village gathered to celebrate the harvest. Adana danced with the young maidens, her silk skirt fluttering like waves in the wind. Cheek, dressed in ceremonial white, stood silently at the center of the sacred circle. And when Adana spun her final turn, their eyes met, no words, no gestures, just two gazes locked in the crowd. But anyone watching closely would know from that moment on the drum beats no longer belonged to the festival. They beat with the sound of two hearts and the beginning of a fate neither could escape. In the village of Azari, love was never just between two hearts. Every soul that dared to love had to listen to the voice of the ancestors, and some promises weren't spoken by humans, but carved into destiny long before their first breath. After the night of the red moon, a radiant season began between Adana and Chiki. They met after the early morning markets, exchanging bracelets made of palm threads and baobab seeds. She wove them, he wore them. No words were spoken aloud, but everyone in Azari knew a love had begun to bloom. But the moon does not stay full forever. And in Azari, things that blossom too beautifully often do not live long. One morning, Chike was summoned to the ancestral house. Inside the cool wooden chamber, thick with the scent of sacred incense, his father, the clan chief, handed him a roll of red cloth. "This is your wedding sash. Long before you were born, the ancestors chose your bride, the daughter of the chief of Okamba. This alliance will ensure our tribe never bows its head to anyone." Cheek clenched the fabric in his fist. The red burned like something tearing inside his chest. He wanted to protest, but the eyes of the elders were like blades slicing through every thought. Cheek, personal happiness is just a blink of the eye, but tribal honor must be carried for a lifetime. From that day, Cheek changed. There were no more secret meetings by the stream, no more laughter in his eyes. He avoided Adana as if they'd never met. Adana felt the chill, though the sun still shone. She heard the whispers, the rumors, but more than the distance, it was the silence that hurt. A silence that said his heart had bowed to something unseen, something called tradition. Sometimes the third person doesn't come to destroy a love, they were born to replace it. Her name was Naya, daughter of the Okamba chief, a wealthy land across the Niger River. They said her father owned cotton fields that reached the edge of the horizon. Nia was unlike Adana Regal, like a full moon, educated in the city, fluent in the language of white men. The betrothal ceremony took place in Azari's central square. The great drums thundered in triple beats. The clan chief led Nia through the crowd, with Chike beside her, his face still as ancestral stone. The villagers cheered. Only one person could not breathe, Adana, standing at the back. From that day on, Nia was everywhere, at ancestral offerings, in women's craft classes. Even when Cheek inspected the farmlands, she was always by his side, graceful and composed. She did nothing wrong. In fact, she was kind to the villagers. But for Adana, the world fell into silence. Cheek never spoke. He never even looked at her. The secret glances, the hidden laughter, all gone. All that remained was a distant nod, as if she were a stranger. One afternoon, Adana quietly walked to the baobab tree, the place where they once made their vow. The bracelet still hung on its branch. She reached to take it down, then slowly pulled her hand back. If someone truly loves you, they won't need words. But if they choose silence, sometimes that is the clearest answer. That night from a distance, the echo of wedding drums on trial rang out a sacred ritual announcing a marriage soon to come. Inside Adana's heart, nothing felt certain anymore, except one thing: Shaik, the man who once swore he would choose freedom, had now chosen the path of a king. In the village of Azari, people believed the baobab tree could keep a person's deepest secrets for a lifetime. But one day when the wind blows strong enough, both secrets and hearts can shatter. The rumor spread like wildfire through a dry field. Cheek would marry Nia at the next full moon. No one dared speak it to Adana directly, but the pitying glances from the villagers as they passed her house hurt more than any words ever could. Still, Adana refused to believe it. She kept telling herself if Cheek had truly chosen that path, at the very least he would come and say goodbye. Just one word, one truth, no sweetness, needed only honesty. And then that day arrived, but not the way she had hoped. A young boy was sent in his place, handing Adana a small cloth pouch. Inside it, the old bracelet and a folded piece of paper. "I'm sorry, please forget me," that was it. No name, no explanation, not even a final glance. Adana stood motionless beneath her porch. Her hands trembled as she touched the bracelet. She had once imagined that if heartbreak came, it would come in his arms, or at least with the dignity of seeing his face one last time. But no, what she received was silence wrapped in indifference. That night the village roared with drums and flames, celebrating the beginning of wedding season. Laughter echoed from the old to the young. Children ran wild under the firelit sky. But from a distant hill, Adana stood in silence, watching the wedding from afar. Cheek, dressed in ceremonial red and white, walked beside Nia. His hand held hers, yet his eyes seemed lost, unfocused, gazing at nothing. Adana turned away. No tears fell. Only the mountain wind brushed against her skin, cold like the truth. And from that moment on, she understood some promises aren't broken by betrayal. They simply fade away when silence lasts too long. When a heart breaks without a sound, there's no blood to see, but the earth still feels it. In Azari, pain that is not cried out often turns into strength if the one carrying it dares to rise. After the wedding, Adana disappeared from village life. She no longer joined ceremonies, didn't walk through the market, and stopped sitting by the river, weaving bracelets for children. Her house lay silent among wildflowers, as though its owner had drained all the light from the world. The villagers pitied her, but whispers began to spread. Girls who loved the wrong man, some said, may never find another. Others muttered, she should have known her place. No one can go against blood and tribe. Only one person still visited her regularly, Adana's grandmother. Her hair was white like the dry season clouds, her eyes deep like ancient wells. She sat quietly beside her, mending torn clothes, boiling herbal pots, and occasionally telling old stories. "I too once loved a man who could not choose me," she said softly. "But you know, from what is broken, a woman can craft something miraculous if she's willing to walk forward." That sentence like a seed sprouting from ashes. One morning, Adana stepped outside and cut fresh palm leaves. The next day, she picked up needle and thread again. Within a week, the first child knocked on her door, asking to learn how to weave. Then came the second, the third. Without being told, the villagers began returning to her. Some came to mend clothes. Some came to ask for ceremonial bracelets. Some came just to sit under her porch, sip herbal tea, and listen to Adana laugh, a sound they hadn't heard in so long. And so they said to one another, her heart may have once cracked, but now the cracks are where the light shines through. Some people lose everything and never realize it. Others lose just one thing, but it was the most important of all. And silence. The longer it lingers, the harder it is to forgive. After the wedding, Sheik officially became heir to the clan. His schedule was packed, meeting with elders, resolving land disputes, greeting envoys from neighboring tribes. Everyone said Cheek has become a true leader, the pride of Azari, but no one saw what happened at night. Every evening, Cheek returned alone, still in his ceremonial robe by morning. He would stare at the ancestral drum hanging on the wall, with a chest that felt hollow. His marriage to Nia, once believed to be a powerful alliance, felt like two boats tied together, drifting in different directions. There were no arguments, but there was no joy either. Nia was graceful, skilled, a woman of tradition, but between them there was no spark. No shared glance that meant something. Sometimes passing through the square, Cheek would catch a glimpse of Adana head bowed as she taught children to weave or watering plants with her grandmother. Each time he froze, then turned away in silence. One day during the harvest celebration, the villagers proposed honoring Adana for passing on her craft and healing many with her herbs. Cheek agreed without a word. That night he sat alone beneath the baobab tree, where once long ago he had made a promise. If only I had the courage to defy tradition. Maybe the one beside me now would be you. The wind rustled the forest, shaking the trees, but there was no reply. And so Chaik, who had everything power, honor, position, lived on like a beautiful drum, whose skin had torn and would never beat again. The ancestors may shape our fate, but they cannot silence the voice of the heart, because in the end, the choice still belongs to us, and the price, no one escapes. Years passed. Azari changed homes, became sturdier. The young began to leave for distant schools, but the old baobab still stood silent like a memory that refuses to fade. Adana had become a woman deeply respected by the entire village. She not only continued teaching the art of weaving, but also opened a small school especially for girls where children learned to read and write. Every evening from her thatched roof home, laughter echoed as children played blending with the rhythm of pounding herbs and her grandmother's lullabies. As for Chaika, strands of silver had begun to streak his hair. The village praised him as a wise clan leader, one who preserved peace and guided Azari through harsh, dry seasons. But in his eyes, there remained a hollow space that nothing could fill. One day, as the winds began to shift, Azari held the grandest ancestral remembrance ceremony in its history. The entire village gathered in the square. After the offering rituals, something unexpected happened. Cheek stepped forward into the sacred circle, asking to speak. His gaze searched the crowd and landed on Adana. There are choices we make when we are young, choices we believe are right. But as we grow older, we realize we were wrong. Not because of the consequences, but because we lost something that can never return a true and honest love. Adana said nothing. She simply smiled, stepped forward, bowed respectfully like any other villager, and quietly walked away from the circle. Because forgiveness does not mean returning, and sometimes true love means letting go so both can finally live as who they were meant to be. That day in the wind, some said they heard the old baobab creak as if sighing, and beneath it the bracelet from long ago, now covered in soft green moss, still rested silently, a witness that had never spoken but never forgotten. Years later, the children who once learned under Adana's porch had become the next generation of Azari. Some had journeyed far, others chose to stay. But every one of them who once sat under her palm leaf roof remembered three things: live kindly, forgive freely, and always choose what brings peace to your heart. Adana was no longer young. Silver strands now danced through her hair, but her eyes remained clear like spring water at the mountain source. The villagers called her the Light of Azari, not because she was wealthy or powerful, but because she had risen from heartbreak and lit the path for others, using the glow of her own scars. One afternoon, a young girl sat beneath the old baobab and asked, "Mama said you once loved someone you didn't marry. Were you sad?" Adana smiled.